Good morning. So welcome to the Joint Committee on Agriculture and Food Systems and the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Environment. It is November 24th, Monday. This is our 10 o'clock informational briefing. And first, I'd just like to do some introductions. So on behalf of the House, myself, Corey Chun, Chair of the Committee on Agriculture and Food Systems.
Matthias Kush, District 1, Hilo Hamakua, using my inside voice for the microphones.
Mike Gabberts, representing Senate District 21 from the West Side. It'll be my 10th year chairing the Agriculture Environment Committee. And I also just, want to mahalo Rep Chun for initiating the briefing. And thanks to DAB and in advance for their presentation and for all of you for being here. We're really looking forward to I've been talking to some of my colleagues, actually some of my constituents as well, getting an update from the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity on two critical measures, Act 231, which was passed in 2024, putting real money behind fighting invasives, and then Act 236, which we passed this past session, which will set the stage for true eradication. So looking forward to it. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
All right. With that, let's get into the presentation on biosecurity by the Department of Ag.
Good morning. Good morning, chairs, vice chair, and members of the committee that might be on Zoom. Over the past 2 years, my name is Sharon. Vice Chair Richards. My name is Sharon Hurd, Chairperson, Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. Here today to thank you for allowing us time to give you an update on biosecurity measures that we're taking in the state. Over the past 2 years, the legislature and the governor have made historic investments in the Department of Agriculture's programs. And with this funding, we were able to rebuild, strengthen, and modernize the infrastructure and resources that we need to do the work we do. This way, we have been able to prevent, control, and mitigate, respond to, and hopefully, sir, to eradicate the invasive species that have found their way into our islands. That said, we have a long way to go. And we have, however, made real progress towards that goal, which is a safer and healthier Hawaii, and most importantly, a day when our farmers and ranchers can wake up and not have to deal with invasive species, but they can focus on the task of growing food for us. Today, we're going to walk through the framework we are building, and we have made many accomplishments, which we will recap. And for that, I'm going to be calling on our DAB staff to make the presentation. But first, I want to introduce those of us that are in the room today. I'm going to say that Deputy is off island on another animal protein briefing. But here in the room today, we do have Ag Liaison, Legislative Liaison Cedric Gates. We have our State Veterinarian Administrator of the Animal Industry Division, Dr. Isaac Maeda. We have our Pesticide Manager, Esther Reichert, who is also the Employee of the Year for DAB. Yay, Esther.
Could you raise your hands, please, so we can see who you are? Yeah, thank you.
Esther, raise your hand.
Yes.
Okay, and then we have with us the Plant Pest Control Manager, Dr. Young Han Lau. And rounding that off, we have Craig Cluett, who is our GIS Program Manager. He'll have a moment with you later on today. Moving on to the presentation, calling on Branch Manager of Plant Quarantine, Jonathan Ho, you're all familiar with him, and the Administrator of the Plant Industry Division, Dr. Richard Kim, which I will ask them to come up. Thank you. Did I forget somebody?
Thank you, Chair Hurd, for the introduction. Aloha, Chair Gabbard and Chair Chan, Vice Chairs and member of committees on agriculture. Nice meeting you all. And my name is Richard Kim. I'm a plant industry administrator. I recently joined for the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity last April, and I'm working with all of our branch managers, Jonathan, Esther, and Young Han as well. And I'm gonna present the first half of the presentation, and then Jonathan is gonna present the rest of the part as well. And at the end of the presentation, we have a newly hired GIS program manager, Craig Proud, as our chair introduced, will provide a brief demonstration of public-facing pest dashboard, originally scheduled to up and running on December 1 this year, but it's already available. It's on live right now. So he's gonna demonstrate the dashboard. And mahalo for the opportunity to provide this informational briefing on Hawaii biosecurity framework and current threats and the actions being taken under Act 231 and Act 236 to strengthen our statewide biosecurity system. This work is essential to protect Hawaii's agriculture, our people, our economy, and our unique island ecosystem from pest and harmful invasive species. Why biosecurity is important for Hawaii? So we continue to invest significant state resources to address harmful diseases and invasive pests. And as you see here, rapid ODR death affected natural forest and watershed health. And little fire ant impacted agriculture, pets, and wildlife, and also community well-being. And coconut rhinos beetle threatened the cultural landscape and also the food security. And we also need to prepare for the pests not yet in Hawaii, as you see here, the brown tree snakes, and also the red imported fire ant. The statewide cost of widespread establishment of this kind of pest could reach hundreds of millions of dollars with long-term consequences for our environment and economy. And Hawaii's isolation has always been both our greatest strength, but also the greatest vulnerability. And strengthening biosecurity is not optional. It is essential to our future. What is biosecurity in Hawaii? The goal today is to provide a high-level overview of Hawaii's biosecurity system and the partners who make it work. And mission statement over here, biosecurity is the set of measures taken to manage the risks from pests and invasive species that prevent, detect, and manage the pest and harmful invasive species that threaten Hawaii's agriculture, economy, environment, and public well-being. So our department leads the effort, but our success depending on the strong collaboration with interagency partners, counties, industries, and communities statewide. So what biosecurity means to Hawaii? This picture shows a powerful example of why biosecurity matters. If coconut rhinos beetle is unmanaged, Waikiki iconic landscape could be dramatically changed, as you've seen in these pictures in the bottom. And biosecurity protect Hawaii's economic stability, and Hawaii has about $3 million landscape industry and tourism economy and nurseries and local food systems. And also biosecurity protect environmental health, such as native forest, watershed, and endangered species. And also the biosecurity is protect the community well-being, such as public safety, cultural identity, and quality of our life, and shared public spaces. And coconut rhinos beetle kills palm trees. The impact including unsafe beachfront area, loss of cultural and visual identity of our state, and also reduce the state revenue through the tourism and declining property values and costly removal and replanting later on. So biosecurity protect every sector of our state. The last 2 years, Act 231 and Act 236 significantly strengthened the Hawaii's biosecurity structure. And for our department, this law enhances authority to regulate high-risk materials before coming into the Hawaii. Requirement for the offshore treatment and also pre-entry standard. So updated enforcement tools and penalties for imported violations. And authority to issue and manage compliance agreement and pest management plan. And permanent staffing and operational support at the port and in statewide pest management programs. Act 236 also updated the department's name as Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity and clarified statewide responsibility for biosecurity coordinations as well. And this is somewhat busy slide, but we did the state agency with biosecurity functions. Biosecurity is shared among many state entities as listed in here. And while federal government or federal partners are essential, today we are just focusing on agencies where the state has the direct authority over mandates and resources. And those are including our own department, as well as DNNR, DOH, DBED, and DLE, DOT, PISC, and University of Hawaii CETA. And our goal is to ensure clarity of roles, fill gaps, and strengthen statewide capacity. So this system depending on shared responsibility and aligned across all agencies. And Hawaii State has sent 2 delegations to New Zealand, including Chair Gabbard and Chair Chan this year. And global leader, New Zealand is the global leader in biosecurity. So we want to learn how they integrate public participation, science and technology, and reinforcement and communication and coordination with many different agencies. And our goal is not to copy New Zealand biosecurity system, but to apply the lessons that make sense for Hawaii's unique needs. And this is the New Zealand biosecurity system. This New Zealand biosecurity system is they call Hinaki Net. A strong biosecurity system including prevention before arrival into their country, and inspections and surveillance at the border, And New Zealand, inspection and surveillance at the border, and also their surveillance detection, readiness and response after pests came into their countries as well. And New Zealand biosecurity system emphasized that everyone champions biosecurity and own their responsibilities. And New Zealand principle, as shown in this slide, and we are a net, not a wall. So they do not want to protect their entire commerce. And no system is perfect, but multiple layers working together reduce the risk of invasive species. So our state is already operate across all three layers: pre-border, border, and post-borders. For example, the pre-borders, our department has been working with both Oregon and Washington State Department of Agriculture for Christmas tree inspections. When they are shipping into our state, these two Department of Agriculture inspecting their trees when they are shipping on the cargo. In 2012, before we implementing this compliance, we had about 61% of the container supposed to be treated. But in the last 3 years, compliance has exceeded more than 99%. Only 1 or 2 instances we have been found. At border, our plant quarantine inspectors examining express mail's package, as you shown here. And after border and CL, we have the port of entry monitoring program through HIS, and they are setting up the CLB traps near the port of entries, airport and maritime. And also the picture showing on here is the conducting green waste survey to find out the breeding site for coconut rhinus beetles. And also the picture below the thread is just injecting tree trunk with pesticides to protect our palm trees. And then 2 pictures on the right, just using the boom truck and spray the CLB pesticide on crown area to protect our trees. And these layers work together to protect our state. And this cartoon illustrates the biosecurity requires all of us. So the canoe graphic shows each agency is paddling together toward the same goal, protecting Hawaii. And the order in the canoe is not intended to suggest any agency is more important than another, but rather to show that each has a different mandate and responsibilities. The goal is to share understanding and then shared actions to achieve our goal. So this slide emphasizes the core authority mandates of each agencies with biosecurity and responsibilities. And it provides the clarity on the role and authority within the statewide systems. And some of the statutory roles and responsibilities from our department is mainly leading the pre-border, border activities for the importation of plant and animal into the state, and conducting the pest management, which include inspections, certification, and regulation for inter-island or intra-island movement as well. And DRNR is leading the pre-border and border, post-border controls for aquatic invasive species, and also the terrestrial invasive species as well. And DOH is leading human disease vector management and public health and human welfare. And DBED is supporting the international trade, economic resilience, and industry engagement. DLE providing the enforcement authority for the containment and quarantine compliance and interagency operations. And DOT manages the seaport, airport, and transportation pathway. And HISC provide policy level directions and interagency coordinations. And UHCTA provides support of research, identification diagnostics, and outreach and community engagement, and also the scientific tool development for all of the invasive species management. And this is the Hawaii's visualization of New Zealand model. And key principle including it is most cost effective to manage risk before anything comes into the state. As shown in this picture, the threat level are highest pre-border, but once they go through our SCUM net, and we can filter out any risk, the invasive species, and reduce the threat level after the post borders. But the costs are highest if we are not able to manage those pre-border and border side. For example, brown tree snake program costs about $350,000 per year. But once the brown tree snake come into our state, it would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And pre-border, border, and post-border works together as a single and unified program. And now I will turn it over to Jonathan to walk through the Hawaii's biosecurity network.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so I'll be getting more, I guess, into I think a lot of the tasks that are going to be high-level tasks that are going to be broken down at each of the individual pre-border, border, and post-border segments. What you will see is this slide multiple times. So just to square that away. The second thing is the items will be color coded, red, yellow, green. Red, kind of minimal. Yellow needs improvement, and green kind of in progress. But again, these are not absolute. We're not saying that green is like we're perfect. We're not going to touch them. But it's just kind of where we are today. And what you'll see is the agencies that are indicated are kind of like the leads. There are a lot of partners that are doing work that may not necessarily be indicated here, but you'll kind of see them on the future slides. And again, going back to what Dr. Kim said, again, we're kind of coming with this from the statutory level, and trying to identify every single task and duty and responsibility or individual program that every person does. The presentation would take like 5 hours. And again, it's just to kind of really reemphasize the fact that all of us have our own mandates, and all of us have duties and responsibilities to do those things to be comprehensive and obviously mitigate risk for pest and invasive species within the state. So same thing. So this is again the pre-border activities, and then we'll kind of focus mostly on the risk analysis, the pathway and offshore compliance, the red and yellows. So for the risk analysis component, you'll see all of the individual tasks, companies doing them. Obviously, we're not getting into like all the nitty gritty, and then again the partners that are there. Act 231 did give funding for this, and then we have a contract with the university to do some risk analysis for us. the pathway compliance component is, I think, a bigger long-term goal for us in that, like Dr. Kim said, again, trying to do stuff before it gets here is going to be a key thing, and rebuilding our capabilities to do that risk analysis internally, not necessarily doing it through contracts or some type of agreement with the university, and then getting that infrastructure built so that this can be something that's done continually. Obviously will help to mitigate risk before it gets to the state. The offshore facilities and treatments, this is again to try to push back things before they get to the state. A lot of goods do require treatments. Coffee, green coffee, for example, is something that requires treatment prior to entry into the state. And for other either agricultural goods or other commodities that may not necessarily be agricultural, for example, like Myrtaceae, so plants in the Ohia family, we require treatments and or quarantine. So expanding those requirements and being able to do a lot of this stuff before it gets here obviously minimizes risks either at the border or post-border. And again, public awareness, right? Again, just getting, I think, all of us to be more cohesive and integrated so that as we see issues, we're able to obviously coordinate with each other and then get other partners who are in either transportation or movement or whatever sector they're in on board with what we're doing for biosecurity. So here's just some pre-border things that are being done. Akamai arrival, that's the digital agriculture farm. As of right now, we're basically all the flights are being done. Domestic flights are on board with this. We're getting about 10% more people doing declarations in the physical form, so better. We need to work more obviously to get to 100%. So we're going from 60 to 70, 75% on average. Some airlines are much better than others, but we're working on that. Most of the airlines are doing the declarations prior to flight, not in flight. So we're able to get the information 5-6 hours ahead of time. So we're basically able to meet the planes where we know who we're looking for, as opposed to kind of chasing them after the fact. So a lot of these ideas are trying to give either more information or minimize risk prior to entry. Like Dr. Kim said, again, we have Christmas trees in Oregon. So they do a bunch of things prior to entry, and in the beginning, the first 4 years, we were going up to Oregon to kind of see what they're doing. Oregon and Washington have sent staff here to see what we're doing. And again, that interaction has enabled us to get to basically 100% compliance at this point. And obviously it's still a work in progress. We're still working with it, but again, significantly less risk. And then the last slide on the little bubble on the side is again treatments, right? They're doing the treatments of regulated goods before they get here, obviously targeting whatever particular pest it is, so that when they get here, the likelihood of them being infested is essentially non-existent. So yeah, so here's the border stuff. And again, this is kind of our last go, as it would say, before you get into that really massive post-border work, right? So, and I think this is kind of what I think most people normally see this as it relates to plant quarantine, right? You're doing inspections, things like that. And and again, a lot of other agencies also do work here, depending on their jurisdiction. So it's not necessarily just for plant quarantine. In this instance, I think we're a little better. I think a lot of these activities are a lot more robust, and I think a lot of them can be enhanced. Again, say the risk assessment. You'll see this kind of throughout the matrix, in that again, data assessment and pathway profiling again gives us the ability to utilize our limited resources in places they need to be. May not necessarily be as much of an issue if you have unlimited resources, but obviously that's not the case for us. Surveillance, again, this is again as we rebuild the plant pest control branch. Obviously, DOH has got vector control branch back. POEM is there on the port of entry monitoring program through HISC. obviously expanding all of those efforts, right, gives us the best ability to detect things initially or where they're incipient before they're established, and obviously take immediate action to eradicate. And then increase the use of detector dogs. And right now we have 3, primarily focused for brown tree snake. They do a little bit of cargo. That's only on Oahu. That's something that can be done. And then transitional facilities. This is a very well established program in New Zealand where they utilize certified facilities. I think they have about 3,800, I believe, something about that right now throughout the country. And they utilize a lot of private businesses or folks that are basically certified. And Act 236 did create authority for this, and we're working on that. I think this one is 28, I believe. This one is a one that's delayed, but again, we're working on doing this. We do already have a kind of I would say a pilot, but we already do this to some extent for certain goods, for certain facilities, for fresh fruit and vegetables. So for for some folks, we do this. Not, I think, to the extent of where the program is going with the rules, but it's kind of a baseline. So I think when we get into creating the formal program, transitioning those folks into it will be pretty seamless. The biggest difference between us and New Zealand for this particular program is for the goods that aren't specifically regulated. We regulate a very specific set of goods in 150A. New Zealand does kind of everything, and that's going to be a bigger challenge, and hence the fact that they have 3,800 of these facilities. So that's going to be tied to the risk profiling, which goods can go to transitionals, which facilities can have them, stuff like that. So it's a lot like Chair Heard said, a lot of work that's going to need to be done moving forward. Again, with the partners as well. So again, some of the tasks, right? Again, inspections, get the dogs, again, get the harbors, and then get diagnostics. Stuff that we kind of already do, and again, it's just from kind of department standpoint again. But a lot of the partners do work here. This is not just a DAB function. So post border, there'll be 4 slides for the 3 nets. So readiness and response is kind of split, but this is the biggest portion because once things get past the pre-border and the border, the most amount of work and resources and labor is going to take. It's going to take to deal with pests, and so again, here are the 5 things that we're doing. So the hotline right now, I think everyone's familiar with 643 Pest hotline and the 643best.org, and then you'll see the that dashboard. So we're trying to, I think, really centralize all that, and the HISC folks have been working with us to really try to iron a lot of this out, and I think trying to create a very centralized place for everyone, I think will enable us obviously to do these responses, more efficiently. Again, risk assessments, detection, investigation, right? Trace forwards, trace backs. Diagnostics, all of those tasks need to be more well developed. Obviously, some agencies are more better at it than us, like DOH, for example. They have a very robust system for their stuff. But again, the rest of us still need to build that up. And then preparedness. So one of the biggest things is, historically we've been pretty reactive as opposed to being proactive, and a lot of this is to align all of us and to be prepared for the next big thing, whether it be red imported fire ant, whether it be brown tree snake or whatever other pest that does not exist in the state. And there was an MOU that was signed, and obviously we've been working with the partners to do these for CRB, elephant, and Koki, and the department's really appreciative of that effort because we're kind of overwhelmed, and they've been really helping us to kind of push these along so that they can be done at the state and the county level. So again, post-border kind of response and readiness kind of just put them out together just for the sake of moving them in. And you'll see that a lot of the tasks between these, so like, will be tied together. So you may see some like duplication, but they're really tied together to the extent of response or readiness or surveillance or eradication control stuff. So so readiness is going to be one, I think, where you have like the most like yellow and red. We've got a kind of a long way to go, I think, collectively. And again, a lot of this, going back to the pathway management, same things. We need that to build that up. The government industry agreement one here, the second one, is I think something that New Zealand really does, where they enter into formal agreements with specific agencies, specific segments of industries to have them be part of the surveying, the responses, and stuff like that. So we met with the Hawaii Floriculture and Nursery Association last week to provide them a high-level introduction to what we're doing here, and to introduce them to the GIA, because obviously, right, they pest and invasive species is like their name of that's their business, and they want to be part of the solution. So we provided them with a high-level overview of this, the board, and we wanted them to see, where they were with regards to, embracing some of this, because obviously it's going to take work on their part. And the board was very receptive to it, and so that's a good sign for us. And so we're working on drafting an actual agreement for them to review at the board level, and then to dissemination for their members, and then we're going to look to enter into that. And we're hoping to be able to establish it specifically for a lot of the target pests and CRB, Koki, LFA, and then potentially using some of the funds that we're allocating Act 231 for some like area-wide suppression for building up some of the fruit fly stuff, and then getting more resources into like Queens and Longpoint beetle. It's kind of a big problem now on the Big Island. So again, response management, again, this is data how we go about responding, and I think creating or making sure that all the partners are using a standardized system, so that when a response is implemented, we are all working on the same same playing field, same standards, and then getting out additional data collection, pest hotline, resource. I think we'll get into resources, but again, building that up so that there's more of this, and then making sure that there's dedicated funding for everyone to do the work. For example, with the invasive species committee folks, right? They're self-funded and they do a lot of work, and that work is important. The department cannot do it by itself, and finding ways, how, whatever that is, to make sure that that work can continue in perpetuity, because that stops, we're getting behind the 8 ball. As we build the simulations, as we build the plans, actively going out and ensuring that they actually work, having a tabletop, whatever that may be, maybe annually, semi-annually, we gotta work on all that stuff, but again, being less reactive and being more proactive. This is the biosecurity components for farms and non-farms. It's very similar to the GIA, right? Getting systems that are science-based that folks can implement so that they can do their part to manage risk. And then development. So there's been a lot of talk, particularly with LCC and CTAR, about trying to create a biosecurity-centric curriculum to get folks, not only into the state agencies that do biosecurity work, but also to get these same folks into farms for, as these on-farm biosecurity practices get involved or get created and implemented, you have these folks that are basically, I won't say turnkey, they know what to do and they can get them done, right? So that it's not relying solely on the agencies or the partners to do a lot of this work. And the response, very similar, so we're at readiness and then doing the actual tasks. One of the things that we're gonna see is again, like with, like for example, containment, eradication, is, and this kind of diagnostics, is getting more tools available for containment and eradication, like in that, I think as we've seen with coconut rhinoceros beetle, right? We're kind of chasing. And so if we can identify pests, we can either do the research to figure out what everyone else has already done, or do the research before it becomes a problem so that we know what's here. So a lot of the challenges, for example, the pests may be foreign, the treatments that they're utilizing are not legal in the US, for example. So what are the analogs that can be utilized so that should there be an incursion, we have the tools ready. We're not trying to figure out what they are. Again, same thing, awareness, engagement, those are, very key things, and then recovery management. So this one is, I think, kind of the bigger one in that there's a lot of partners, and this is what you're doing when pests are just got past all the other nets. They are here proverbially to stay. Eradication is not physical. And again, a lot of this is going back to creating long-term, when you create the response plans, having these long-term management strategies, right? So say the plan's not work, what can be done? Again, what are the long-term disease and management practices that can be done? Again, rebuilding biological control, and I think there's been a lot of successes, and the successes generally are forgotten because they work so well. Like a good example is like nettle caterpillar. It was really bad, and then biocontrol came in. You get outbreaks, but you don't remember. A lot of people don't remember it. Like folks that are new to, I think, biosecurity, like what is nettle caterpillar? They don't know what it is. But folks from Big Island, you knew what it was. I mean, you're getting just hammered by that thing. So I think building that up. Obviously, the university is doing a lot of work with CRP. Hopefully, that's kind of one of the things that will help solve the problem. But again, just building up that capacity. And doing something very similar to New Zealand, where New Zealand, for their target pests, they basically preempt the potential for an introduction, that they start doing biocontrol research for those target pests. So should they get in, they already have the agents already identified, so that release can occur, so that they can suppress immediately. One of the big things is that you'll see these three things here: recovery, planning, compensation, and welfare. So New Zealand has a pretty robust recovery component built into their statutes, so they basically pay folks. And I think there are some limited examples of this. For example, like with AI, where they do like some the herd reduction for tuberculosis and stuff like that. So I think in the long term, coming up with this so that when extreme measures may need to be taken, there is the way to get industry on board immediately, and they're not going to basically be put out of business if you got to take drastic action for whatever the pest may be. H1N5, for example, New Zealand spent a huge amount of money for a lesser pathogenic version, but the ability to do that is there, and they're still working through that compensation process. But those are kind of the things that I think obviously that the partners are going to have to work with the legislature on that, because again, each of our mandates is going to be slightly different, and the impacts to industries are going to be slightly different as well. So the way that this is going to be laid out is going to have to be a little bit more nuanced moving forward. And again, just some quick some things here, and again, like going back to, right, you see all the partners, and here you see GIAs, and you see like predator-proof fencing, flying in a helicopter and shooting my my coney in this instance, rappelling off of a cliff, spraying the forest. Massive amount of resources and cost, and and risk obviously as well to the staff, to the folks that are doing this work, and again, this is not the department cannot do this by itself. And going back to like what New Zealand said, right? Everybody has a role. They gotta own their role and do it. And we need to ensure that all of us are working together, moving forward to ensure that we can do the best for the state. And then last part for Richard.
Thank you, Jonathan. So this is the screenshot of our test dashboard. It was aimed for the launching on December 1st. But fortunately, our new the GIS program manager on board, and then he was able to expedite this process, and then now is on live. So let me introduce our GIS program manager, Craig Pruitt. He's going to demonstrate some of our live dashboard here.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Craig Pruitt. I am the new GIS program manager at the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. Previously, I was with the Office of the Governor as the data scientist for 2 years, doing the Maui recoveries largely. So thank you for having me. So obviously, we have this new dashboard. It's brand new. Actually, we just turned it on today. So it's a work in progress. It's definitely going to be something that we're going to improve upon. We're using agile development, and it's called. We're rolling it out today, but basically every quarter we're going to be updating and improving upon it. We certainly need to do some cleaning up of the house. It's a new position in the GIS program here. And I would like to thank Enterprise Technology Services, ETS. They helped greatly with the look and feel of the dashboard, the website part of it. Very helpful to do that. So let me stop sharing here and still available. Yes, share. Great. Okay, so it's called biosecurity.hawaii.gov. That's what's chosen before I got here. So it's a website where we're going to be adding in more and more, but we started off with the 4 main pests or interests: avian flu, coconut rhinoceros beetle, cookie frog, and little fire ant. So what we do here is we're basically, a lot of it's going to be storytelling in the beginning of what the problem is, what are some of the solutions, how we're approaching it, and then we're going to have all the data metrics. And the data metrics, again, we're going to be improving upon it once we get a little more work with the HISCs and the DLNR folks. We'll start to try to coordinate it all into one centralized place to work together. That's a work in progress. So we basically have a landing page, telling who we are, what we're doing, and stuff like that. Our friend Josh Green, the governor. And then we go down to the program. So we can look at it different ways. Avian influenza, of course, so hopefully it's kind of here, but it's not a problem yet. But anyway, so we have our animal industry people are working on that. And so again, it tells us about it, what we're doing, what are some of the symptoms, how you can protect your flock, and general information from the public, which we want to get out there. And we definitely want to get working with the public and even schools and stuff like that, because we want to make it engaging, because really, again, it's not just us, it's everybody on board here for a lot of this. So we go down and we tell about it. Of course, contact information if you have questions or concerns. Again, what you should do if you see a sick bird in this case, and then we jump to the maps and dashboards. So in this case, I was working with our chief veterinarian, Dr. Raquel Wong. So she was able to provide the information. So here's where they're actually doing the samples and testing. So again, people across the state can go and take a look, see what's going on, be assured that we are doing something. And then we're going to be updating this. We're going to get it to a live feed eventually, where we can see exactly where the work is being done and how it's being done and what the conclusions are. So far, actually, it's been good on this one. There's not been a lot of problems. So there's that one. Then we jump to the CRB, which is certainly grabbing the headlines now. So again, story about what it is, how it got here. It's a great picture of a drone, how we're using new technologies, and we'll be increasing our awareness of how we're tackling this with drones and other new technologies. How you can report it, again, the spread, the response, some information like that. Very importantly about the host material, especially as we all know, the compost is really problematic. This one, which everybody has a pile in their backyard, I'm sure, like I do, fortunately. And then again, we go to the maps and dashboard section. So on the maps and dashboard section, we have people out there, live going every day with, devices, phones, tablets, GPS equipment, collecting data samples and stuff like that, or treatment samples. So in this case, it's treatment, how they're either spraying it or doing trunk injections and stuff like that. So there's different programs, and obviously we're testing out the science to find out which one's the best and most appropriate across the state. We'll be reporting on that. Again, it just started basically a year ago, so it's going to take a little time for some of the science to catch up with us so we can really say which ones basically of the different treatments, in this case, spraying or trunk injection across the islands. Same thing with, this is fiscal year, so we have it from last year. We're going to start basically everything from last year, fiscal year 25, and then going into fiscal year 26 because the data before that was a little bit light. But anyway, so that's our basic approach. And again, so you can see where we're doing it, what kind of treatments we're doing, things like that. Then, of course, here on Kona, we just started, actually, we were just there last week. So here's some examples of where we were looking at the Kona Ag Parks and the Kona Airport. We were just at the Kona Airport last Thursday doing truck injections. So again, it's how many of the treatments, things like that, where they're being done in general. And then again, some statistics, which are really important, metrics, statistics, information about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And then we also go into these live dashboards. So the dashboards, again, generally we're going to be reporting by zip code level, although we do have the data down to actual like nurseries or people's property. But again, we don't want to be outing people or if it's on private property. But we are collecting that data and then we're reporting it back out at the zip code level. So that makes it, again, something that everybody can appreciate and look at their own zip codes. And in this case, again, we're talking about what kind of treatments we're doing, what kind of trees we're doing it on, different species, mostly coconut, of course. Property types, again, is it private, residential, state land, county land, so we're tracking that. And then again, what kind of applications, how we're doing it with drones or manual from tanks, whatever. So we're doing that again, so that's 25, fiscal year 25, and fiscal year 26. And these are going to be, once we get going a little bit more, they'll be up to date live, basically, these kind of dashboards, so people can actually see data real time. So if they see somebody and they're spraying, say, along a beach park on a Saturday, by Monday or Tuesday, it will actually be in the dashboard representing that. So you can keep track. Again, it's really good also for scientists, and also when we go to like UH and all that, they can take this data and really do some great research again, which is important. So that's the coconut rhinoceros beetle. Oh yeah, so again, we have so the different types, and this is the responses actually. So we have the treatments that we're doing and also the responses. So we can take a look at that as well in dashboard form. And then we'll be adding more as we work with the HST and the DLNRs and the CTAR, because they'll be doing similar things. We'll work together to make the best presentation of that materials. Then if we go, take a quick look at Cookie Frog, its favorites. So the Cookie Frog, again, story about what it is, why it's a problem, and all that kind of, and to report it. Then also maps and dashboards. And then so here's where we can see cookie captures. So by zip code again, so you can see some zip codes have quite high numbers, 800s and thousands by zip code. Then we have it again for this year, fiscal year, and then we have the live dashboard. This one in this case actually is live. And so in this one we can actually start to click on things like, oh, this is my zip code. So I can click on this bar and it will highlight on the map where it is. And all the numbers on top now are just for that zip code. So again, it's gonna be interactive so people can really, because again, most people I know using maps, first thing they want to do is zoom to their house and they want to look at, oh, this is mine, right? So we want to make sure that that's available to people. So again, if you have to live in this zip code, you can click on it, find out the number of responders, how many frogs have been captured, see it on the map, and then up on top, seeing what kind of, if it's a survey or treatment. So we did that for the Cookie Frog for last year. And also pounds of citric acid. Of course, we're using citric acid, not pesticides, to remediate on the Cookie Frog. So again, so information about how much citric acid, and we'll probably put more information about what that is because some people don't understand that we're using food grade safe treatments instead of pesticides, which people would like to hear. And again, we have it for last year and we have it for this year. And finally, little fire ants. Little fire ants, again, the issue, what the problem is, explanation about it, why it is bad. Again, as we know, pet issue, or even people that during a outing at the park get affected by the little fire ant quite literally. So this is a great one again for citizen science, because this is one that people can actually, bring home samples from schools and things like that and test their neighborhood, test their school areas. So it's a fun one for kids. So it's a really good one that we can get this information out. Maybe we for schools to help, schools can do their own little areas and stuff, help us out, help themselves. The little fire ant dashboard, same thing. So we're talking about where we're doing the work. Again, we sum it up by zip code level, but we do have the data. Again, about the negatives versus positives. Because again, we put out samples and then we see if the ants come, right? So that's what that's showing. So again, if you see a green circle with no red, that means they put out samples but did not find any negative. But if you do see these circles with the red, that's where we got to start to worry and start to work extra hard. So we have that for last year, we have that for this year. So again, you can see what areas we're doing it. And again, on the dashboard, again, number of samples put out, number of samples positive, total acreage. And again, we did the same thing with the maps. And so again, if you want to see where it is, you can click on your zip code again, and it will highlight that. Waimanalo, in this case, is the hotbed for little fire ants on Oahu. And so again, people can really focus on the issue that they're concerned about or interested in. And we'll be expanding this out again more as time goes on, and again, working with the HST and the DLNR folks to all the islands. So this is, right now, a lot of it's Oahu, but we will be expanding that out shortly. Just gonna take a little bit of time I just started first week of November, so a little ambitious, so we got this far. But ideally, though, we're gonna have it all out statewide, of course, have a lot more data, because it's gonna be fed in. And then make it fun for the public. And again, we really wanna make it so it's down to a level that the public can understand and appreciate, and really hope to get into like the schools and things like that, participating. So make it citizen science type oriented. But again, in the background, we're going to be creating a big database of scientifically collected and analyzed data that we'll be looking at for actually solving the problems or attempting to. So that's all I have for today. Again, we'll be adding other programs, brown tree snake and such. We have the data, we just have to collect it when we talk. And it's live. We're not going to turn it off, even though we had December 1st. It's the deadline. We're live today. We're going to just keep improving, and again, we'll be doing quarterly updates and adding in new things as we go. And I already have meetings starting tomorrow with the HSTs and the BISCs and all the people like that. So we'll be adding in the data very quickly. Thank you.
Congratulations on getting it done early. I think that's a world record. Good job.
Thank you so much, Craig. So currently, our dashboard is mainly focusing on those high priority pests, the coconut rhinus beetles and coffee frog and little fire ant and also avian flu. And primarily, we are using our internal data at this point, but we are just continue to working with our interagency partners, and we can update all of the data we are collecting from our partners as well. And also we can expand some of the other invasive species data later on. With that, mahalo for your continued support for Hawaii, the biosecurity effort. And our shared goal is simple but critical. So we try to keep pest and harmful invasive species away from our state and prevent their spread within our islands. And a strong coordinated system, pre-border, border, and post-border is essential to protecting our agriculture native ecosystem, community, and economy. So Act 231 and Act 236 have given us the foundation to modernize and strengthen these systems. And we look forward to continue this work with all of our partners. And thank you for the opportunity to present this biosecurity framework for our department. And with that, we are happy to answer if you have any questions.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Before we get into questions, I just want to introduce our members who were here at the beginning of Senator Richards and Representative Matsumoto. Thanks for being here. With that, we'll open up for questions. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi again, I'm Lauren Matsumoto. I represent Mililani and Milani Malka, and it's nice to be back on the Ag Committee after I think a few years of not being here. Ag is one of my favorite things, so I love hearing all that you are doing. I have a lot of questions, but I'm just gonna get to my main one, which I think is one of the most important. Just as legislators, how can we best be communicating with our constituents with all the work that you're doing so we can all be paddling in the same direction? I don't know which organization did it, but I remember my daughter got coconut rhinoceros beetle tattoos that were life-size, and now she can identify them anywhere she goes. But I do know there's many of my constituents, they'll see CRB, but they don't report it, or it's already dead. They don't know, are they supposed to report it still? So there's a lot of those questions that they have. So how can we best communicate with them? And do you have like PDFs? Do you have infographics? Because I know all of us do newsletters that we can be pushing stuff out to our constituents, especially with this new dashboard, which is really interesting.
Yeah, so the goal is, I think, to because the website is like biosecurity.hawaii.gov, and I think the goal is to try to centralize everything, and a lot of the work, I think particularly with like CRB response, going back to the tattoo, that is from the CRB response team.
It's the ugliest tattoo I've ever seen, but she wore it proudly.
No, I mean, and I think the goal worked, right?
Yes.
Clearly, right? She knew what to do, and we, both programs get a lot of calls about CRB, and like, is it CRB? Is it not? What do I need to do? And I think as it relates to Oahu is a little different in that it's just so widespread, and I think the messaging and the work that needs to be done is, I think, what can you do to help manage the risk of CRB as it relates to Oahu and not spreading it to places that do not have it, particularly inter-island. And I think the goal really is, again, right, to get everybody like on board and really draw the lines of who's doing what where, and ensuring that whichever agency is deemed, for example, if CRB response is going to be deemed with all of it, that's fine, but everyone knows where to go. Everyone in the room, because when we look at the room, you have basically we saw that kind of like wheel graphic. Everybody in that graphic is here, and I think that says a lot that everyone understands that biosecurity is important. So again, it's making sure that all the partners who are doing biosecurity work, even if it's not their Kuleana, to understand where to send people so that they can do this stuff. And like Craig said, right, it's trying to make sure that what we have jives with everybody else, so that it may not necessarily be us that has it, but people know where to go and what to do. And then getting into those very specific county-specific plans, because the problems are very different depending on the county. Like what Hawaii Island has to deal with is very different as it relates to Koki and LFA, but significantly different for CRB as opposed to Oahu, right? So it's a completely different set of plans and messaging, and I think getting all that out and centralized so that everybody understands what to do. Because a lot of times you may see something, but it may not necessarily be designed for you and your particular circumstance. And I think trying to get that nuance out is something that we really need to work, I think, better on coordinating for all of us.
So currently we have an existing reporting system, 643 pest and also 643pest.org. And still those two major reporting system is active, but we want to improve those reporting systems, all connect to our dashboard, and everybody can see what kind of report we are getting. And also, even though you have a dead CLB found in your neighborhood, still reporting is really important because we are not able to go out each individual locations and identify and record keeping all of those for management strategy. But if the public and community is reporting those stuff, then we are automatically collecting those information and we have a general idea where the problem coming from. So we can map out how to focusing on our resources and management the structures.
I said, sorry, just to clarify, do we still send people to call 643 PEST? Or I didn't quite understand if there was some sort of reporting mechanism on the dashboard, or if the dashboard, if there is. So that button, when you click it, you can report if you see something.
So the phone number, 808-643-7378, 643 PEST, that goes to the department. 643pest.org, the online reporting is actually run by HISC, so HISC takes the reports and then they kind of funnel them out because they can kind of go to everybody. So the dashboard is so right now the department doesn't really have a formal way for people to submit electronically, so that's what it does. So it's basically taking the phone number and giving somebody the ability to do it electronically, but it's a completely separate system from the existing one, but it's just to help facilitate transmission of information. So what will end up happening a lot of times is somebody will call us and they'll say like, I have a coqui frog, okay? So you gotta screen it. Was it during the day? Was it at night? What's up? Did you hear the sound? Whatever it may be. A lot of times people may not necessarily know, or it's inconclusive. So what we do is we tell them, next time you hear it, go outside. Everybody has a phone now. Just listen to it. And then, so we have this, very roundabout way of getting this information. So if you can do that, right, then it's just like, just go here, just do this, and then we can just deal with it. It kind of just helps speed it up. And I think, kind of melding the two programs to make sure that they're kind of jiving in it so that we can get that data out onto the dashboard. Because you'll notice that the dashboard doesn't have test responses. So that's something that, obviously we can start building into that.
I love the dashboard, because I remember I called once for a coqui frog and it was like, is it fat or skinny? And I'm like, compared to what?
Right,
I don't
no.
know.
Yeah,
So it was like, are the toes long or short? And again, I was like,
Yeah.
as compared to what? So I think it's helpful that there is actually those visuals that you can send people to. I had a greenhouse frog, I'm hoping. So if there's a coqui infestation in Milani, it's not my fault. But I think I'm really excited about the dashboard and excited to push as much information out to my constituents. And I'm sure we all are to do that. So thank you for the work you've all done.
Yeah, so, and I think for that, pushing that to the constituents, I think as we become more centralized, obviously, we can provide that to folks. And then, one of the things that we've been very thankful for the assistance is that as we've been doing the LFA treatments with the contract, in particular districts where we've had some challenges, we've actually used the representatives, the senators, to help kind of get their constituents on board. There were a couple places where we had quite a bit of resistance, and getting those folks on board really helped us to kind of get past that to start the treatment. So I think as we develop more of these things, I think very targeted information to you folks is going to be very helpful to really achieve a lot of the goals. And then I think a lot of the partners already do that, and I think again just coalescing all of that to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Thank you.
I got questions. I can probably speak for the next hour. Or ask questions, I should say, like you did talking. Historically, our state's always been late to the party. Every time we have an invasive species, we are very tangled up in policy procedures, so we don't respond as quickly as we should. Have we gotten through that? That's a yes or no.
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, I want to be honest about it. I think to the extent, to say yes is, would be disingenuous.
Right.
And to say no is also disingenuous as well. And I think the best example right now is what we're doing in Kona. And it's It's not
You're talking
perfect.
CRB.
Yeah, for CRB, right? It's not perfect, but right, you know, you have this doing all and CRB response kind of doing a lot of the surveying, a lot of the outreach. The department's been basically really focusing on the treatments. You know, DOT has been really helpful with providing a lot of the physical resources. We have machinery and things like that. The county has been assisting. DLNR has offered to assist if necessary. We haven't really had to call them in on it. And then we've been with some of the newest infestations which do involve some DLNR land, but they're kind of on board. So it's, you know, I guess the idea of what we presented is occurring. Is it perfect? No. And I think that goes back to trying to kind of create these very, you know, I think standardized plans and not standardized plans, documented plans that really identify who's doing what where and who's accepting the responsibility for those particular tasks. So that moving forward, right? If you know, if you're gonna do the surveying, that's your kuleana. Nobody else is doing it. You're responsible for it. If you need help, you gotta ask. And you know, and I think I think, you know, we're guilty of that as well, the department. But ultimately, I think that to address that idea of being responsive, right? If you have the plan ahead of time, right? Going back to like identifying the resources, where are the gaps, who can do what? If all of that comes into fruition, like and I think going forward for the legislature, right? If we have the plan, and if we believe that, you know, we need A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or A to Z are the things that we need to do. 10 of the things are completely vacant and they require resources, right? If you guys have that, you guys have the ability to decide if this is important or not, and help us to move. Because I think right now, right, I think a lot of times what ends up happening is you have the problem, everybody responds, and nobody really knew what the problem was until it became a bigger problem.
Well, see, and that's the problem that we've had in the past. For instance, Sinicio, the fire.
Fire read, yes.
It wasn't a problem and no one would get excited until it was a problem, because it wasn't a problem,
Yes.
which is one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. So on that, we talk about biosecurity, and I'm glad Chair just came back in. We're talking plants, we're talking animals, we're talking disease. So that's all falls into the biosecurity. What is the authority, and Chair, I am looking at you, to declare a quarantine right now? Do you have the authority?
We do have that authority right now.
How quickly can you declare a quarantine for anything? A plant invasiveness, an animal? Let me finish asking the question first.
Okay.
Plant invasiveness, an animal invasiveness, or a disease? How quickly can you respond?
We can respond quickly. I mean, avian flu, H5N1, whenever there's a flock of birds that's reported that's dead, we have the capability to respond. Declaring an emergency, that might be
Declare a quarantine.
quarantine. Depends on the situation. We can do it though. For instance, I'm gonna use H5N1. We know it's a disease, we know it's a threat, we know it's here, on and on. But at what point do you declare the public to be wary? And I think if we have enough of those dots up there where public is reporting, I can tell you this, DLNR, DOH, DOT, Department of Ag, we have the capability to test, okay? We can test. But
hang
we
on.
don't have the legs on the ground.
But I'm talking about, can you declare a quarantine for a region, little fire
Okay,
ants?
well, can I use the quarantine for H5N1?
No.
No.
I
Little
want
fire
you to, because that's as a human side. I'm talking for something like
QLD.
CRB, yeah, that's fine, or little fire ant
We can
quickly.
quickly. We did the interim rule for movement on your island quickly, and it was a 90-day temporary stop movement.
The reason I'm asking is because do we need to do legislation that you can declare that and shut it down?
I think we
And so then let's branch over to animal side. Several years ago, and I could probably remember, probably about 12, 14 years ago, we had trichomoniasis diagnosed in the state. We didn't have the ability to shut down livestock movement for trichomoniasis.
Is that a swine thing?
No, it's a cattle thing. But the industry voluntarily quarantined itself. It would have been better if the Department of Ag had the ability. So do we have that ability to get those things done?
I'm gonna say we have the ability, but we have to be careful because is it a true threat? Is it something that's?
industry, absolutely.
So we have to, if I say that it's a pest, people will say, well, this is a pest, right? So it has to be a declared, maybe through the animal industry, plant animal board, declared pest.
What I'm looking for is the problems and the walls, oh, we can't do this, we can't, tired of hearing cannot.
Yes, yeah, so
Senator, you have, we know that we can count on you for legislation, you're a champion for this. You can say that we currently have the authority, we did that, not necessarily with the animal, but with the movement of green waste on Big Island, we were able to do that quickly. But it was a temporary stop movement, we needed the county's support.
And I'm okay with temporary, and back it up.
And then now we're working on the permanent rule. So the quarantine is in place now for green waste movement within Hawaii County for a certain zip code, so we can do it. It's just to what extent do you want the, okay, I'm gonna use another one. You wanna talk Molokai? Molokai came to the board and said they want absolute no movement of plant material into Molokai, period. We kind of had some discussion, you know, let's omit gravel, let's be careful, let's have the department treat, especially something like construction material, before sending it to Molokai, and it was adamant. The testimony was strongly in support of the total quarantine. So Jonathan put it in, what, Jonathan, 1 week?
so with regards to the Molokai, so I think we got it, and I think the petition was obtained, I wanna say it's in July or August. And I think was it September, October, I don't remember, so long ago, but we completed the interim.
Yeah, so with the petition came, we had the board meeting, the quarantine happened. I want you to know that there was strong voices from the Molokai that said, we don't want this.
No, I understand, but so you're telling me it took 60 to 90 days to get a quarantine in place, and that may be shutting the barn door after the horse is out. Chair, couple more, I don't wanna.
I'm just gonna,
Question.
actually, we're gonna go one,
Okay,
we'll come back to you, Jim.
you bet.
You're next.
Are you going down the line?
Yeah. go down.
Sure. Thank you for your guys' presentations today. Sharon, you should probably stay. Maybe just hang on. You're the chair, and so I'm sure a lot of people will look to you for guidance. For my one, if I'm just allowed just one question, do you guys have a strategic discussion at like when is a time, you know, we're talking about the 643 pest, that makes it really it has a lot of friction, it sounds like, from the average person living in Mililani, to Rep. Matsumoto's point, to like try and describe biological features of a tree frog to someone on the phone versus, you know, technology allows for a quick photo or video, or if it, you know, there's a lot of easy steps you can build into a website for seamless conveyance of information. And do you guys have like a strategic team in the DAB community, maybe involved with DLNR and HST? Like, here's how we can improve our IT or our full consumer facing face versus, it sounds like you guys are just thinking of only of professionals or within your own silos. You know, HST does this and we don't interact, even so there's a website and a phone number that's similar, but that's like 1980 feeling technology. And then like in that same vein, like, is there conversation between these organizations? Like, why are we throwing money at Coqui Frogs. Like, that's out. I'm betting that a lot of those districts, I walk around Waikiki, you can hear them occasionally. You know, those get on cars, you know, on Hawaii Island, it's widespread. They track on a truck, comes apart. Someone parks at your lot, it jumps in the wheel well, it drives, and the females are silent. They're out there. And like, at what point are we? And then the LFA, I remember we had the discussion last year, pouring money into that. Whereas maybe those resources are better spent in biocontrol methods, or even RFAs. I understand there's organizations out there. I know those are kind of like outside leading edge is looking at the private sector for genetic warfare against ants. There's no native ants in Hawaii, so it's not like you're going to be hurting the endemic ant of Oahu. You know, just do you guys have a strategic committee amongst all these different players to meet once a quarter and hey, are we using our resources effectively, our public funds, our time, our energy? Like, stop fighting fire ants in certain areas, because that is out. Let's spend our resources and do things like what Senator Richards is talking about. And
That makes sense. We do have strategic planning. And the word that I like to use is interagency. It's always interagency strategic planning. And the thing that we want to do is, to your point, we go by public response. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So we hear from you all that, you know, I'm getting all these calls for Coqui Frog. So we respond to Coqui Frog. We're getting all these calls for CRB. I just had a conversation out with the representative outside. We're going to make videos and we're going to post them on the website that you can click. How do you identify a CRB? You do an infographic, you can download and print. So we do work with all of the agencies to do that, but it is public outcry. We get our feedback from you. Rosary and Parakeet, you're not gonna hear that outcry from Maui because Maui doesn't have it. You're gonna hear it from Oahu and Kauai. So we respond to that. But this team is gonna be well served by the dashboard, because the dashboard will track how many calls we're getting, what are we hearing from, how many clicks on this, how many clicks on that. So we'll have a better way to respond. And you're giving us the tools to respond. We do need some additional tools. As far as quarantining, that's a tough one, Rosanna, because the public, when you quarantine something, you always have unintended consequences. And the unintended consequences are sometimes as problematic as the actual quarantine, not for something as dangerous as an animal disease. We know that. So we're working our way through. Yes, we do have strategic plans. In fact, there's a HIS quarterly meeting this Wednesday, just before the holiday, and we talk about that. It's interagency. There's about 10 members, and we talk about how we're gonna fill the gaps. But we are taking the lead. The dashboard is really showing us the way. The dashboard is pointing us to the way. So there's also groups like the Plant Animal Board. Jonathan attends that. You're the SPRO though, so he attends these national meetings. So we get trends. It's just we're starting.
yeah, no, and I thank you. Don't get me wrong. You got good progress. I think I've been to New Zealand. These guys have been to New Zealand. Senator Gabbard couple times. I think the difference there, and I look at your maps, and I almost think about the demographic in those zip codes and the maps, and like people reporting, not reporting. And I think in New Zealand, they have invasive species hunts and all kinds of things. It's built into the culture, and I think that's one of the strategic goals. And maybe Craig back there, you understand what I'm talking about, using the IT to reduce friction for consumer interface and QR codes and 4-digit number, text me or picture, video, sound. Those kinds of things are relatively low-hanging fruit, and I just hope that that's part of your strategic planning. And in combination, there's a lot of environmentalists in the state that can help in making that available to farmers. you know, it's a difficult task, I understand that, and I appreciate you guys leaning in hard.
Biocontrol.
No, that's huge, and I've asked you folks, I reached out, you know, please send us your thoughts for this coming legislative session. I think that's I use that, the stinging nettle caterpillar, the willy willy gall wasp, another fantastic success story. I always ask community meetings, who's been stung by stinging nettle caterpillar? Because on Hawaii Island, it was a super common thing. You just reach into any vegetation and get stung. And the other one, the coffee bearer borer, I've seen a decrease, you know, so that's another potential success, but we need to really spool that up. There's a lot out there.
The funding did give us funding for CBB CLR, and we've expanded that to biocontrol. I did want to go back to what Jonathan mentioned on the GIA. It's confusing because GIA means grant and aid, right? It actually is a government agency. We're gonna change it at some point to Biosecurity Industry Association. That's gonna be really, really important because let's say the floriculture industry has been said to be the source, right? So we're gonna say, hey, we got an outbreak of this bug right here. The GIA program will have taught them, this is how you identify it. These are the tools you need. We're gonna give you the chemical. You have a sprayer, delimit. Start here and then slowly control it. But the agreement that we need from them is, even if it's not a Hawaii Floriculture Nursery Association member, you are willing to help the industry. And the liability is an issue. So we wanna expand that to the tropical fruit growers for avocado lacewing bug, expand it to the cattle industry, expand it so that we have these government industry groups, almost like military, you know, you can deploy them, get them out there and delimit. And that's something we picked up from New Zealand that they do.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, can I add one comment? In terms of the diagnostics of pest or diseases, our plant pest control branch tried to create our diagnostic sections. So these diagnostic sections will have a plant pathologist and entomologist can have a public diagnostic service available. So even though there's a AI technology out there, they can take a picture and then do identification, but this technology is not applicable for all pests and diseases. So we're gonna strengthen our capability for the diagnostic service to the public. So they can send samples, or if possible, they can send the photos or videos, and then we can provide any diagnostic identification to the public. And also, not only providing the diagnostic result, but also we can collect all of those information. Who is reporting where those insect or diseases founding? Those are the fundamental of our database. We don't need to send out our staff every single locations. So public can report their findings, their observation to us. Then we can do more thorough surveys in that area. That's the plan we have right now.
Good. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you, Doctor.
Right. So my question is, I have a question on prioritizing invasive species going forward under this new framework. So not every invasive species affects agriculture, environment, and health. And those are probably three competing interests. So going forward under this new framework, how would you prioritize which invasive species rises to the level of getting in some of these eradication plans?
Good question, and that is based on the threat to public health and safety. I mean, and the other thing we consider is what is the threat to the continental US? Because federal funds depends on what is the threat to the continental US. So public health and safety, and usually it's human health, right? So that's where Dr. Maeda comes in, and Department of Health. The big scary one is foot and mouth disease. And we're trying so hard to keep that out. So the priority would be based on the threat to public health and safety, the threat to the invasion to the US. And I guess the other one would be the outcry from the public. But I would defer to Richard.
Yes, so I think that our statute have the procedure how we can classify as a pest. And to declare as a pest, we have a economic analysis and environmental impact and so on. So once we collect all of those information, it's depending on how much those invasive species impact on our agriculture and ecosystems and natural environment and so on, then we can prioritize based on those informations.
This is a follow-up with Rep. Kush's point that he made. And by the way, I liked your canoes here. And so the follow-up question is, you have the 8 departments, and then you also have public, one of the rowers in the canoes, public, industry, and county, right? So you had the 8 departments and those 3. So my question is, are you, and each of you has talked about the goal is to have clarity on what reaching goals are. So do you have regularly scheduled meetings of everyone here so that you can go over these things and determine the priorities and do whatever it needs to be done?
Yes, we have a regular meeting with all of the interagency partners. But industry and public, we have not engaged those ones yet. So all of the framework is based on what we are wishing for. So we want to include publics and industries as well in our.
One of them was county, yeah. So.
Yes, county as well. So only the one example, when we are working on the CLB in Kona, every bi-weekly meeting, we invite county staff, and they provide their feedbacks and their recommendation as well. But not all the invasive species cases. But we have to work with the county department as well. And also once we have a government industry agreement, and we are expecting that industry is going to be heavily involved in our biosecurity effort. So they can provide their feedback, and also that they have to provide resources and the labors as well. So that's what we are hoping for.
Because on our trip to New Zealand, that was one of the main points that came out, was just the people getting out of their silos and actually these agencies working together. So I really think that this is super important. And that,
I do have a question, which I probably shouldn't, since I wasn't here for the first part of it. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be cool. I went to the eye doctor just now and I can't see anything with the glasses off. Following up on the New Zealand comparison, my impression in New Zealand, I haven't been there on an official tour, but my impression just from hiking in the woods was that they are going after species that we would consider well established, like they're trapping rats, which to me is, I mean, that's been there since Captain Cook, if not before. It seems like there's a little bit of a tension between trying to stop stuff from getting a toehold and then continuing to fight invasive species that are well established, like coqui frog. I couldn't tell from the conversation whether we're giving up on coqui frog because it's already here, or if just a higher priority is stopping the new stuff. Or are we trying to do both?
Let me just say that we just had a meeting with Speaker Nakamura, and one of the things we're doing is we are, the speaker is looking at doing a predator type of control, and that would include rats and mongoose and dogs and cats. So it's to control even things now that we consider, we have to live with. So, and mongoose, did I say mongoose? So she has an idea to do a predator control type of bill, which speaks to what you said as far as
But right at the moment, what do we do?
Yeah. Oh, for that,
Not for those species necessarily, but in terms of the split between, we have limited resources, so bang for the buck, it probably makes more sense to focus on the emerging threats as opposed to ones that are already really dug in?
So I guess what's being done is both. And the level of resources that are being input is it varies essentially right now by county. So for for example, we'll use I think Hawaii Island as it relates to LFA and Koki. Most of the work is basically to prevent entrapment. But a huge amount of input being put into CRB. Whereas Oahu, there's quite a bit put into LFA and Koki, not so much anymore on CRB. And then you have like islands of Molokai, which don't have any of the pests, obviously, right? So you're just, we're not gonna obviously give up on those. And then Maui, again, that don't have CRB, LFA and Koki, they have their issues, and same thing with Kauai. So I think to the extent I think prioritizing, I don't think it's as easy as you hit a threshold and you just turn it off. A lot of it really depends on the pest, your ability to detect, and your ability to control or mitigate it or eradicate it. Like Koki, for example, is an unusual one in that it tells you it's there. So you can do something, and until we had the these kind of two big outbreaks on Oahu, the department and the partners have been able to keep Oahu free of Koki. It's been in the state for what, 40 years? I'm not sure. It's been here in the state a very long time. And the existing systems that we've utilized have worked. They're not perfect, and obviously once it gets past I think the critical points, like for example like with Wilkona in Waimanalo, right, it was found in the worst possible place, like a mile away from anywhere at the base of a mountain, and it's and it's not for lack of effort. I mean, we tried helicopter drops at Citrec. We got the community has done a huge amount of effort out there with DLNR and OS. They're doing spraying, and I think the existing pests, I don't think we should just give up on them unless it is like, and again, I think this goes back to some of the other comments about where's the threshold? Like when does it become, you turn the switch off and you're gonna turn and take all those resources that you're using for mitigation and turn it into research or whatever that may be. And
so the New Zealanders, they do give up on some stuff occasionally.
So New Zealand is very so like for example H1N5, they're not gonna take too much I think remedial measures. I think if they start finding a lot of it, for them it's mitigation, or what can they do to live with it. And
Thanks.
yeah, and I think we need to come up, I think, with again, going back to the risk assessment and all that data, that unit of folks that are taking the existing data, what's happening else in the world, and then applying it to us, right? We don't really do a good job of that. And I think and utilizing all the partners and things like what are we realistically capable of doing for a particular pest, and that's what we're able to do. And if we get past that point, you gotta
But Senator, to give you evidence of how we have not given up on Koki frog, we are I hate to use the word stockpiling, but citric acid, food grade citric acid is very difficult to get, and it takes a long time to come in. So Jonathan, Dr. Han, they're now ordering in advance, and we take delivery in preparation for the potential outbreak wherever it might be statewide. Because it is so difficult to obtain and bring over, and it's getting very, very expensive, we are doing what we can do to bring it in. The problem is, Jonathan, what was the problem with citric acid when it gets wet?
Yeah, so so citric, obviously food grade, it has some shelf life issues, and particularly it's essentially like a crystal. So if it gets really humid, it can kind of turn into bricks. So it's very hard to like basically put into a system and you know
Thanks,
So we're
that's
doing-
great, thanks, Chairs.
Thanks, Chair. Kind of folds together a little bit, but Director, you're talking about federal government
Yes.
and the federal funding. Hawaii's long been, going back to the graphics that we're looking at, the nets that we're looking, Hawaii, and this is what I said to the Secretary of Ag, we get treated like we're just outside the US, not inside the US. What is the relationship with Department of Ag federal at this point as far as cleaning that up? And also kind of on the heels of that is the public education side. We talk about control, but if we're not telling the public that we're doing this, I think we do have a cultural thing. People are proud of it, but if they don't know what's going on. So how is that being communicated? And I'm not exactly sure who to
I
ask.
think the person here that knows the most about Part 318 of CFR, the territory rule, the food supply rule, probably Jonathan, is he, only because he has more history with it. And to your point, we do meet with APHIS once, I wouldn't say once a week. During the shutdown, it kind of slowed down, but we're resurrecting it. Very good, they get it, we are a state, they get it, we don't need to be, we have bananas, we have Secretary of Treasury said the other day, started his speech, since we don't grow coffee and bananas. I was like, excuse me? So we have work to do, but we're making progress. We have a better relationship. First thing we did was let Secretary Besson know, hey, you know what, hello, you'll never have one of our bananas because it's the best in the world, but Part 318 says we can't ship it to you, so we're making progress. You were there, you
Yeah, I
were there,
was,
you
and that's why I don't think we're making
Oh, yeah.
progress.
Part 318, we're almost getting wasabi in, your constituent, almost, close.
So, real quick, Senator, so I think the biggest thing, as it relates to, I think, that interaction and which really separates us from New Zealand is that they're a country, we're a state.
Right.
And, as Chair said, federal preemption is a problem. And one of the biggest challenges with it is that, right, it's designed very much so for very large states such as California. And internally, at least at the state level, we have a very good working relationship with USDA, CBP, US Fish and Wildlife Services, like that. And we meet quarterly with them. There's something HIRAC, I can't even remember what that. But anyway, it's all the regulatory guys. We meet, we discuss a lot of things, and and we try to break down the walls as much as we can legally to work around. Like a lot of times there's issues and it's you find ways to get there, and ultimately because you have this overarching issue as it relates to these bigger agricultural states, I'm not sure the best way to manage it. We have been, I think, trying to utilize, some of the existing regulations to try to manage foreign commerce. So, with the Mutaceae stuff, they were able to, using the NAPRA process of not authorized pending pest risk analysis to kind of prohibit importation of certain goods. So I think there are ways to utilize some of the existing systems to help protect Hawaii, and very targeted. But I think a comprehensive fix through the Plant Protection Act, I'm not really certain how the best way to do that is. I think through congressional delegation, and like Chair said, I think that we're trying to figure out ways to do it, and I think some of the processes, like Chair mentioned, like with wasabi, we've recently done avocado. The citrus may be moving potentially for export, so it's trying to figure out how to bypass some of the logjam to use some of the existing processes to enable very specific goods to move, and it's having the resources for those industries to be able to go through the risk assessment process, because it takes a lot of research and time and effort. And they don't necessarily have that, and neither do we.
Okay, so just real quick, Chair, quick follow-up on that one. PBARC, what's the relationship and how is that doing right now?
PBARC's okay.
PBARC is
But they're getting
way ahead
hammered.
with biocontrol. It's
Well-
yeah.
And they've helped us out a lot, and I
Yeah.
know that, but given all the cuts that are going through, does that look solid right now as far as you guys know? And is your working relationship staying the same or
I'm gonna
enhanced?
say yes. What I think PBARC's working relationship with the federal government maybe needs to be a little bit strengthened. I mean, we've been advocating for money for PBARC.
Okay, so that's the weakness I'm concerned with then. Right, thanks, Chair.
Yeah, I think just to follow up to that strategic component, you know, in your meetings with DLNR, DLE, DOT, are you guys at those meetings have the ability to come to conclusions versus just not more like, okay, Jonathan's gonna research some more about the Koki frogs and where they are, or you know, DLNR is gonna look at what impact aquarium fish introductions into our water bodies are, or you know what I mean, like come up with, do you guys have the tools and the frameworks and those strategic meetings to be like, we're gonna discontinue buying super expensive and super hard to procure and eating up a million man hours with citric acid spraying, which is like, you know, I feel like that is a lot of window dressing at this point. Because we're not eradicating Koki frogs. I mean, do you feel like you could eradicate Koki frogs on any of the islands?
So
In those kinds of manual methods outside of biocontrol?
So I guess as it relates to I think at the island level, the existing tools are not conducive for island-wide eradication. And I mean that's the truth.
But Jonathan, go with our friend in Mililani.
Yeah, no, but again, I think going back to that comment, right? You know, Oahu particularly has had numerous established populations of Koki frogs, big and small. You know, generally, you know, not the size of a mountain, but there have been, I think, was it East Range military? I don't remember when that was, but that was like 15 acres, and using the existing tools, that population was eradicated. And I think going back to the point I think what you're going at is I think the tool that we're using was designed as a quarantine treatment to facilitate movement, not necessarily as an aerial-wide control tool. And we're kind of like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole and trying to get more effective tools for uses that aren't necessarily designed for quarantine. And so, for example, HST had funding, and there was a lot of research projects that were emphasized, for Roxana Myers, for Kilo B. There was a lot of research put into Koki, and this is kind of one of the first times, which is obviously funding from the legislature, that enabled to, again, create more tools in the toolbox. And I think right now we're kind of like, I don't know, one arm behind your back, you're trying to box with somebody, right? You're against you don't have that advantage. And I think, right, getting that research funds out, giving ourselves the ability to utilize information better, to do things more efficiently is something that we don't do too well. And again, but obviously those funds gotta go out, those research projects gotta happen, but there's projects for LFA, there's projects for King's Longhorn Beetle, there's projects for Koki and those things may help. And one of them is treatments. One of the proposals does looking at treatments, and one of the LFA projects is for better baits so that you can find them better. All those things make it better. And again, we're using what we know works. We just haven't done a lot of work on making them better. And I think we gotta and it's trying to figure out that with the ability to like kind of, okay, you know what, it's not gonna work at this point, because again, I think we look at it, I think not necessarily at an island scale. It's given the scope, can you eradicate? And again, you know, LFA, there's been a lot of places on Oahu and other islands where you've been unable to eradicate LFA, you know. OWISC has done, everybody has done some. But can you do it on the entire state? That's probably a biocontrol issue. And again, that's getting to suppression.
Yeah, no, I'm just, like I said, a lot of the insects and the pests. And cookie frog is not one that, that's bugs people, but hurts like our agriculturalists and like LFA or QLB, or spittleweed and, those kinds of things. Like, do you have the strategic framework to be like, hey, here's everybody together. We're spending all this resource on manually trying to spray little areas. Maybe that's better. We can spend 1/10 of that in a public outreach campaign and you can come pick up some citric acid or whatever. But our time and resources might be better spent, and I'm using the Koki frog. LFA, that might be better spent with, instead of $1 million at Terminex to go spray a place for 4 months, and then the board, that's completely useless and money poured down the drain when your neighbor's ants just crawl right back over, or they drift down from the Albizia across the street, versus just giving the ant lab money to teach community groups to keep spreading that word, to have, again, that frictionless outreach, that we want to just have invasive species become a community problem or a community resolution level, because the state can't solve everybody's problems. We can't get into the gulches, we can't, that strategic framework, are we thinking in that group setting with DLNR and DOT?
Representative, you've given us the tool. It's Act 236. You've made us the tip of the spear. We meet with people. We prevent the double dipping. To your point about the LFA, it was because the residences were complaining. So we used we deployed it the way we thought would be the quickest, the most widespread, and the most effective. But you've given us the tool. So we do meet, and we have the power and the authority to direct the funds. And to your Hawaii Latin Act, you gave them $500,000 in Act 250. So you did give them the funds to do their work. Our funding is for control mitigation. Hawaii Ant Lab has their mission to do outreach and instruction. We're following their, whatever the recommendations are. So the idea, you gave us the tool to do that strategic planning, and it's a very useful tool. The dashboard is doing the outreach. We're hoping, the young kids will embrace it. People in my area, my demographic, we would rather do something on phone or, but you've given us the tools, and you've probably seen our ads on TV. That's another tool we use. So.
People still watch TV?
I do, come on. I'm such an,
Okay, good.
Facebook and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I got one more question. This is just a clarifying question. So one of the provisions in Act 236 is the ability for the department to declare a biosecurity emergency. And I know when Act 36 was signed into law, there was some confusion over how that would be used and when the department would invoke that power. So could you just share with the committees how you envision that power moving forward and what circumstances you would actually use it for?
I would make a parallel. After Act 236 passed, there were signs everywhere. State's a fascist, they're coming in and taking our, but there's a process, and the process is intense and long and fair. If we take something from you, we give it back to you. Or if it's been infested so badly that we have to destroy it, you get paid for that. There's a process, and so I'll let John, I don't know, Jonathan, I think has been more involved in the biosecurity emergency thing, but when I go to neighborhood watch meetings, which we do a lot, all of us do, I know we need to do a public service announcement, we need to do an op-ed, we need to do an editorial explaining what this power is. It is kind of sort of like when you hear when someone's raided a gaming operation. You know it's there, it's not doing good things, and so when you have enough evidence and you go there, that's what the emergency tool is like. You know, a neighbor, you say, hey, I see a bunch of snakes in that neighbor's yard. And he's saying, I don't have any snakes, but you know that he has snakes. So that emergency lets us go through the process, enter the property, confiscate the evidence, and take the process to where we have to do. Nobody, you know, if I make that parallel with the illegal gambling machines, that's not quite right, but it's similar. You know something bad's going on, nobody's fessing up to it, we have to take action. Jonathan, Richard, you want?
Yeah, Chair Chan, I guess that depending on what kind of invasive species or pest we are concerning about. For example, any pest or invasive species we are able to control and mitigate based on our existing interim rule or quarantine methodology. And that's not the case, we can declare the emergency, biosecurity emergency. However, right now we have the federal government is really concerning about new screwworm from Mexico and coming into the US territory. In that case, their impact is gonna be very wide and significant for everything. All of the animal health and then our overall agricultural industry, the impact is massive. That case, and also this disease is spreading very quickly. That case, we have to utilize the state emergency process. So we can stop in the beginning, not waiting until we see the widespread, because it's just depending on the speed of the spread. For example, when we have a COVID, it's spreading so quickly, every countries and everywhere, any age groups. That case is the best example we have to utilize our tool.
So Sharon, you said that we've given you the tools, and so based on the current budget and Act 231 and 236 requirements, is the department on track in terms of the implementation timeline?
We are, with one exception. It's very difficult to hire. The process to hire has been speeded up with rapid recruitment events, and DHERD has been very accommodating and even creative and innovative. It's still the pool of people that we have to recruit from. We know they're there, but how do we get them to apply and go through the process? I can give you an example. Somebody I was talking to said, I told my niece, hey, it's really good benefits, the state will take care of you. And she said, Uncle, benefits don't pay my rent. So we do have to start raising the salary that we offer to this young group in order to attract them, because they gotta pay their rent. And you say, hey, in 20 years you can retire and you have a pension. It's like, they turn you off. So that's where we need help, is to raising the salaries of the people that we need to hire and attract. I mean, every day we find a perfect candidate, we interview them, we put them through and they say, oh no thanks, I can't pay my rent.
So my follow-up question, you will be coming to the legislature for more resources in terms of?
Absolutely.
Just
I look at it.
All right, thank you.
Is it good? Any follow-ups?
No, I take it offline.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing, offline.
All right, well, thank you very much for being here, Department of Agriculture Chair, and also all the partners who are kind of committed to this work. Thank you for also being in the room. Really appreciate it.
Yes, mahalo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
With that, I'll adjourn this info briefing.
Okay.